We are back once again, episode 3 of the Unattached podcast. She's Theresa Hresga.
He's Ryan Stanley.
She is spilling water on the floor.
Maybe
Perhaps.
not.
You never tell.
Just put my foot in it.
Before we get started today, I just want to thank everybody for all the amazing feedback that we received in the past week since episode 2 was released.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of gratitude for that.
A lot of gratitude. We picked up almost 100 followers on our Facebook page in week 1. So, by the way, if you're out there, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/theunattached.
And on the YouTube. You can find us on YouTube.
Just search that. And you can also find us on Twitter.
The Unattached.
At The Unattached. Please follow us. In fact, if you can, tell us what you think of the episodes.
I prefer to ask people to lead with us, but...
That's that too.
Exactly.
Lead, follow. Before we get started on today's episode, I wanted to point out to you some of the biggest feedback that we received was a lot around your recommendation or passion around The Alchemist. I had several people on my own Facebook page say, oh, I need to take up that book, or, oh, I can't believe that's my favorite book as well.
Oh, yeah. I could teach a book. I could teach a full class on that book. I could start a mastermind on that book. Honestly, the possibilities with that book are endless, and it's really amazing that so many people have mentioned it, because I didn't know that.
It was a thing.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a thing. And they do call it the greatest book in the world. And it is and don't quote me on this, I may have read this a while back. Thank you. It is the most printed book, second to the Bible.
Really? It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Even if it's the 5th. Let's just say.
Well, it's it's very much up there, and it's been translated into something like 40 different languages. Something I should really look that up, but it's really impressive. And the 20th anniversary edition. I have a bunch of copies of it. I got the graphic novel, but I don't have the heart to really change my mental perception yet. But it's been around for quite a while, and I just thought it was one of those things that may have kind of faded into history. So based on what you mentioned, a lot of people really are akin to it.
Dig it.
Yeah.
So you're on an island. You've got 3 books. Mm-hmm. One of them is obviously The Alchemist.
Ooh, okay.
What might be the other 2?
James Allen, As a Man Thinketh. It's more of an essay rather than a book.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, I'm on the spot.
I know.
And in my mind, I can see my bookcase. Oh, The Greatest Salesman in the World, of course, by Ogmandino. The great Ogmandino. The man, his life itself is amazing.
Yeah.
And then what he transmuted the lessons from his life into his just the writing.
Yeah.
Based on his experience, it's amazing. But The Greatest Salesman in the World is actually, it's a short book that took me 10 months to read.
Because of the style.
The style, there are 10, in the book they're scrolls. So there are 10 scrolls, and the boy in the book is instructed to read them a certain way. And if you read it that way, it would take you 10 months. And when I started reading that book, I was like, oh, I can't just read this book. You're supposed to read it this way. This is how you're supposed to do it.
In it to win it. Do it or don't do it.
So I did it. And I actually am kind of in the middle of doing it again. There's certain principles that I haven't really latched onto wholeheartedly yet. So I, still working on certain parts of that.
Cool.
And
something that came up for me as I was seeing all this stuff come in. I was like, oh, she obviously had an impact on people's perspective around this one book, but might be some other opportunities.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you have a recommendation, feel free to, depending on where you're listening to this podcast, if you're on theunattached.com, there's comments section underneath this episode. Feel free to leave comments there. But otherwise, social media, Facebook, Twitter, wherever, let us know some books you recommend and why they would be valuable to your experience.
Yeah, and I should preface, James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, it's really an essay. It's not a book, but it will take you a while to read.
It's a longer essay?
That one took me almost 2.5 years. I actually finished it on a flight to Costa Rica back in November, and I may have got a little emotional when I finished it because I was so attached to it, to certain things that I didn't really get fully. So just to preface there, but yeah, I'd be interested to see what other books come up, and I love books. But actually, same question to you. What 3 books, if you were on, I wouldn't say a desert island, I'll give you a paradise island.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I got Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
By Napoleon Hill. obviously.
Classic.
Classic, but also, you know, I first started reading that when I was a teenager, and it really I think has a lot to do with where I am today,
Okay.
meaning literally in my journey. Like, I mean, had I not read that, I might not have done certain things, which led me to certain things and certain beliefs, certain programming of my mind, which led me to make choices, which led me to become a coach in the grand scheme of things and set up a podcast and the end result. So I would say Think and Grow Rich is definitely one. You know what? I'm not a book. I don't really have two other books that stand out to me. I'll have to think about it for a little bit to really give an honest answer. That's going to be disappointing to you.
A little piece of me may have just died, but I accept you for who you are. I love you very much.
I appreciate that.
So, and I would, of the books that we've passed back and forth, I know there are two that we are kind of both in the process of reading.
The Celestine Prophecy.
Yes, and The Secret Life of Trees.
Yeah, I haven't started that one yet.
I read The Flaps.
I did read The Flaps as well, so we're in the same spot.
We're in the same flap.
Secret Life of Trees is about trees.
And what they do in their free time.
But no, how they grow together and how they, support each other. It's kind of crazy when you start thinking about their actual whole life cycles and the things that, like, how they take care of their dead trees. It's when trees fall under them and how the trees that are above them literally drop things almost on purpose to grow or make use of the dead trees and protect them. And
it's really interesting. I spent some time in California a while back, and the Redwoods are phenomenal. They really make you feel how small you really are, but how big you really are.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I actually ended up, one of them fell. And when a redwood falls, it's a big deal because these things have lives, like these secret lives of these trees. And these trees have names and histories. And they also, I think they're called colonies or families.
Yep.
But basically, when one of them dies or drops these seedlings, it drops them in a certain pattern and they're all like connected underneath.
Depending on how it falls, yeah.
Yeah, and you can actually, once you start looking at this vast expanse of trees that just looks like a painting and all these brushstrokes of tree everywhere, all of a sudden once you kind of realize that and you have that awareness, you start seeing these patterns. And it's really interesting that somebody put it into a book, and I've read The Flaps and I'm about to really dig
Jump in.
Yeah.
I think the guy is like he's obviously a tree scholar, but I mean, like, spend his whole life like on a tree farm, like figuring out and looking and watching and learning. So
what a time to be alive.
Craziness.
Tree scholars unite.
And the other, but also, not to keep it all about books, but I know you've spent a lot of time talking about more recently The Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Oh,
that seemed to have quite an impact on you as well.
Yes. And again, it's not about the story, it's about the lesson of the story, but the story is incredibly relatable.
Yeah.
But that like, oh man, like, oof. That's something like, yeah, I've taken that book places. Like, I took that book to Vermont. I took that, yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
I probably...
So I'd throw it out there in case anybody,
Yeah, it's a great book. If anybody wants to hang and talk about it, let me know.
In it to win it?
Definitely. I mean, that's a book that I definitely slapped around quite a bit.
Nice, good.
And I've actually... I told you I buy books for people. I don't lend my books. It's
right.
just not fair to the book
or
to the person reading it. But I think I have purchased... I would most... At this point, I have purchased maybe over 100 copies of The Alchemist for people as gifts over the years. And The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, I think I'm up to about 15 copies I've purchased and given because, to people at what I would think would be, and I read that book a couple months ago, actually.
Right.
And I think, did I give you a copy?
No, but you did give me a copy of The War of Art.
Oh, I did. That's another, oh my
which
goodness.
I would add that to my list. So I've got two. I've got a solid two that I've read all of. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Stephen Pressfield, that's what it is, yeah.
Who I've actually followed suit and have given to several people.
That's a great book. Talk about a bitch slap from the universe. If you got shit to do, that book will fuck you up and get you going.
Do it or don't do it. You decide.
It's like I always say, it's
quit complaining.
Yeah, you're either in or you're out. It's like you're in or you're out. It's like being pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not.
Right.
You can never be a little pregnant.
Right.
So that book really puts it in black and white.
Oh, it's just resistance.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Which is attachment.
Absolutely.
Resistance is attachment to the opposite of whatever you're resisting.
Resistance is saying, you don't need to do it. or this is
Yeah.
why it won't work, or any reason to stop you from living your dream.
Yeah.
And Pressfield really gets into that in some really great ways.
Yeah, and he talks about the muse and inspiration, and Beethoven's Fifth Symphony visited how many other musicians, but Beethoven was the one who pushed past the resistance and actually put it on paper and put the bow to string and actually made it the masterpiece that it's become. And he's basically become this man who lives through history because he pushed through his resistance.
Right.
And music, obviously, I mean, I could give you, I just as much as songs, or just as much as books have places in my life and things that I share, songs are the same.
Yeah.
But that one, the resistance piece, man.
Huge. Changed my life.
Yeah.
Easily. And I can go back to it. In fact, I have to revisit it soon.
Wow, you definitely came up with a solid 3. I'm proud of you.
I think
Take
I
a
came
high
up with
five
2.
for that.
It was 2. It was a solid 2. Napoleon Hill.
Celestine Prophecy, I thought was on there.
Oh, I wouldn't put it. I don't know if I would necessarily bring that on the island with me.
Gotcha.
I mean, I would because I know what it's about, but that's about it so far.
For fire kindling?
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there. It's so far so good.
For a cold night. Gotcha.
no worries.
Okay. I'm seeing it.
Anyway, so there was a lot of positive feedback around the conversation around The Alchemist, so I just thought we would revisit that quickly.
Cool.
But otherwise, our intention for today was really to talk about the list.
Oh,
Unless you had something else that you wanted to talk about.
I was actually thinking we could talk about the whoosh, unless you want to hold off on the whoosh.
I think the whoosh is great. Lady's choice. What do you got?
The whoosh. So the whoosh.
The whoosh.
Whoosh.
What whoosh? What is the whoosh? And I know what the whoosh is, everybody. I'm just being cordial.
Oh, you got to tell. Oh,
Right, I just want.
Ryan knows what the whoosh
I didn't want
is.
anybody to think that as I was
Don't know what the
agreeing to
whoosh-
discuss it, I didn't know anything about it.
Look, the whoosh has a life of its own.
It does. Maybe you should start at the beginning then.
I will start in the beginning. So, as you all know, Ryan and I are both certified professional coaches. We are also both admissions coaches at this point in time for IPEC coaching. And we're a coach training program, so we certify people to become coaches. And even if you don't want to become a coach, there's a lot of personal development. And that's why I went through the training initially, was because I was like, I don't really want to hire a coach to deal with me. I'd rather deal with me. This is my mentality.
Right.
I'd rather deal with me by myself forever and not really have to rely or depend on anyone. I have been incredibly attached to my own independence since day one. So that's why I went through the training. And I had gone through the whole training. It was awesome. It was phenomenal. I get to the last piece of the training, like 7 months in.
Right.
And I'm like killing it. I'm loving this stuff. I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. And the trainer, Mark Shaw. He had this thing where, you're in a group of about, I think it was maybe 28 people in a room, and we're sharing a lot about ourselves and who we are, where we come from, and we all have seen each other grow over this 7-month period. And every time somebody gets up, he's like, no clapping. Don't applaud that person. We're just going to whoosh them. We're going to send them a whoosh. And it's almost like you don't have to explain what that actually means.
Right.
But the whoosh, I had to explain it to my sister, and I explained it as like a prayer. Like instead of saying the Hail Mary for you,
right.
I'm just going to send you a whoosh. Instead of saying like, hey man, positive vibes, whoosh. Instead of saying, I'm thinking about you, whoosh. Instead of saying, hey, I hope you're having a good day, whoosh.
Yeah. When you leave a room, somebody, like instead of saying goodbye, I'll see you later, just whoosh. Just here's some awesomeness for you until I see you again.
Yes.
Just whoosh.
Yes. And the whoosh really does have a life of its own. And
I was going to say, and I would say with the offenness, what's the word? The
frequency?
Thank you.
It's a word. Whoosh.
Thank you. With the frequency that we're beginning to use it, I think more and more over the last year plus, or at least that I've seen you use it and continue to use it myself, it really is growing and getting deeper meaning and stronger. Dare I say, more powerful.
The whoosh is getting pretty powerful. Pretty powerful. I have a lot of areas in my life where I go, where I only know those people in that place. It's like, you go to like the corner deli and they always know you and you see the same people all the time. And then you go to the gym and you see those people, and then you go to work and maybe there's not as much cross-pollinating.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the whoosh has permeated every single aspect Every single world that I live
Who's
in.
that chick? I can't remember her name, but I know that she gives me a whoosh every time she sees me.
The whoosh girl. There's a
Yeah.
guy at the Red Deli over in Navasink, and I'm pretty sure him and his brother, they're both in their 70s. They think I'm pretty sure I'm the whoosh girl.
Could be.
Yeah.
And so here's where it gets interesting from my standpoint and from personal growth. I think more recently I've been finding myself using it when I recognize, we were talking about this earlier, levels of judgment. If I find myself judging somebody just naturally as part of being human, I don't think I'm a particularly judgmental person. I think it's, but if I find myself just blatantly judging somebody accidentally, I catch myself, and instead of continuing that judgment, I send them a whoosh.
It's beautiful.
If somebody looks unhealthy, and I might suddenly say, ugh, and I say, wait a second, whoosh, which is really just wishing them whatever it is that brings them joy. You know, I whoosh for them an awesome life, and whatever that means to them.
So that's funny because I feel like I'm a whoosh purist. I don't even want to attach any phrase to what the whoosh is because it's perfect.
Depends on who it is. Depends on where you are.
Because I give angry whooshes.
Well, please stop that.
I give happy whooshes. I've given sad whooshes, like whimpery, like whoosh.
Just whoosh.
Yeah. Like this morning I told you I experienced quite an interesting occurrence in my vehicle, and I have 0 road rage, which means I also always have wonderful parking karma.
Right.
I prime parking pretty much everywhere I go because I just don't experience road rage. Unless there is somewhere where there is unintentional potentiality for bodily harm.
Right.
This morning, I have a 2.5 mile commute. I literally live on the same street that I work on, for the most part.
Give or take.
Yeah, I mean, it's one left turn. It's right there. And there's a train station. All of the lights in this crazy intersection were out. And there was a fella, for no reason, making it much more difficult than it really needed to be. And I get it, most likely late for work. And I just was very disappointed with his willingness to put those around him and himself at such risk for no reason. All the lights were out, whatever. And I whooshed the fuck out of that guy.
How'd that go over?
You know?
Worked for you, right? Felt better afterwards?
I did no attachment. No feeling better or worse. I just whooshed the fuck out of him. So,
whoosh! Yeah. Asshole whoosh!
No,
sorry,
asshole,
sorry.
just whoosh.
Just plain old whoosh?
Yes, and it started because I saw so many people in my life. You know, a lot of people get road rage, and they're like, why did that guy do it? Blah, blah, blah. And I always think the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I realize I never have parking karma. I don't get that type of angry often. I more get frustrated with certain things.
Other things.
Yeah. Lack of self-leadership being probably the one thing that I do get angry about and frustrated with. But the whoosh overtook any opportunity for me to ever even have road rage. And then I started thinking about, well, I'm on the road all the time. Every time I see a car broken down on the side of the road, I send them a whoosh.
Right.
Every time I see a guy running on the side of the road or a chick running, whoosh. And then I started thinking, you know, the people that are fixing potholes and they're late at night and they got the hard hats on, it's cold out or it's hot out, I whoosh them. And then it went into law enforcement.
Right. Anytime you see a police officer.
Yeah, because cops, I mean, however you feel about them, it's still, it's one of those jobs where you can really use a whoosh. And then I was thinking, well, why am I judging cops for needing a whoosh? So now I just imagine this white light of whoosh flowing on the road in front of me and flowing down the road behind
everybody and anybody.
me. Yeah, and then I just imagine the whole world is a whoosh. So pretty escalated, got pretty serious.
Getting kind of serious.
Pretty quick. Leveled up on that one.
That escalated quickly.
It's not even my final form.
No.
Not even.
Can't wait to see that one.
Whoosh, motherfucker.
Yeah, whoosh. Awesome. I love the whoosh. What do you like most about the whoosh?
It's fun and it's simple and it makes people happy.
And you know what's coming up for me now is from episode 2 we talked about the teaching and the learning. When you're whooshing somebody, you are giving and receiving.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
It's like you're giving love, you're giving awareness, you're giving whatever it is. But at the same time, by doing that, you are kind of gaining it, or at least I am. It's like the feeling of sharing, of growing, of helping others is a whoosh to myself.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and it kind of is in alignment with the idea of everyone is your student and your teacher, and everything is a balance, and I think that's a very strong Aikido principle as well. So it's pretty interesting. Also, I think I don't remember when I read this, but I read a book about, and I don't remember. Maybe it wasn't a book. Maybe it was a couple articles.
It was an essay.
Oh, so funny. About how the love that you give is the love that you actually need.
I think that's a Beatles lyric.
Okay, maybe, but
It's called The End. It was on Abbey Road. Never mind.
I know who they are.
All right.
I've squashed a few in my apartment.
Small band out of Liverpool.
Just kidding. I think that actually is the lyric, but effectively they did a lot of like psychological background research on, why we do what we do, and that goes into the whole, is there true altruism? And the conclusion is always it's inconclusive, but people always err on the side of no, because you always give what you don't even know that you really need.
Right.
So they say when you don't have the capacity to give, that's when you need to give the most.
Right.
Because that is
what you need the most.
Absolutely.
Ooh. I made that noise because I'm working on the word need.
You're also working on the word working.
It's true.
So
not to change subjects so drastically, we're at the 22-minute mark, so I don't want to keep this too long, but over this past weekend, I just had this epiphany, or at least just a thought process. I was like, when I use the word need, whether I'm talking about myself or anybody else, what's the problem?
I rolled my eyes. I'm sorry. I just have energy around the word need and neediness. It's different than yours, though, so I apologize, but I'm here.
That's all right. I just want to make sure you were... I wasn't saying anything ridiculous. Good. Yeah. So in order to use the word need, that assumes that there is lack somewhere. So if I say he needs this as opposed to he wants this, she needs this as opposed to she wants that, or searching for it, or could use it, or by even using the word need, you're supposing lack somewhere. And so...
You're presupposing it, yeah.
Yeah.
You're basically calling that into... You're filling a void that doesn't exist by saying that.
Yeah, exactly. And so by bringing awareness to that consistently throughout conversation, I'm also planting that seed into my awareness and what I bring into my life. And so if I were to be able to remove the word need from my usage, then how else might that show up? As you said, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Mm-hmm. So where else might that show up in my life? If there's no more need, then everything will be in flow and I will have a clear understanding of the amount of abundance that is surrounding us at all times.
So, cool.
So anyway, so I'm here saying need, and we were agreeing on need, and then I was like, but that's the word I'm trying to not use, or what might be another opportunity to use a different word.
Interesting.
And to learn a little bit about my vocabulary. And working is like, I also feels like it's a heavy word, or feels like it's a draining word sometimes when it doesn't have to be.
Well, the idea that work requires effort, but when you just are something, you are something. It's not. Right. It doesn't require any effort or thought. Yeah, it's a flow. And I think Agmendino, he writes a lot about that. The whole idea of like doing requires being just like you are, and that's it.
So, and it came up for me because I was having a conversation with somebody, and they're like, we were just, basically it was a coaching conversation. And I said, well, why do you think this is happening? She's like, because I'm working on myself. And I was like, well, it kind of doesn't sound very fun.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, what am I missing
I want to go to that party.
Right.
Not.
So just again, awareness around our thoughts or things, our words are extremely powerful. And so the more we become aware of how we're using them, when we're using them, and whether they're serving us or not, has been a pretty cool lesson.
It's true, and also the intention behind them. So for me, I don't necessarily have the same attachments. Like the word work for me, depending on what it is, like if I'm going to the gym, I'm going to do work.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have fun.
Right.
So, but that doesn't sound heavy or whatever it is. The intention behind it is the one that I choose, but in the colloquial sense of how we communicate on planet Earth in the English language, yeah, there's an effectively, there's a connotation.
Gotta go to work. It's like, more often than not for everybody. Obviously, if you do what you love, it's not the same thing. But so words that I'm working on for this week: need, should, and working.
You're always shoulding on yourself.
I stop with the shoulding.
Shoulding, not shooting.
Right.
Even
less,
on the same page?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Neither.
Pew pew.
By using the word should, that
it's same but different.
Insinuates judgment.
Yeah.
If you should do something, that I'm judging you as bad or not doing what you should do. So easy fix on that one. You just replace it with the word could. I could do that. I should do that. Oh, both.
What if I should do that?
Yeah.
Versus I could do that.
Right.
You're giving it the meaning though. Like you're attaching meaning to it by the way that you're
I know,
It's called
because...
confirmation bias. It's very big in the news these days, that phrase, confirmation bias.
But I'm saying based on how a majority of people use it
Yeah.
was...
You just reminded me of those before and after photos. There's a guy, his name is Furious Pete. He's a competitive eater.
Nice.
I think he's Canadian. He's also a bodybuilder, which is kind of funny and ironic. And he has a video on his YouTube channel where, and he's a funny guy. Like if you ever get a chance, check him out. He's got a video where he does a before and after.
Yeah.
Finger quotes before and after for like like working out, weight loss. So he goes to the gym, he gets a good pump. He like oils himself up and gets some really great lighting, takes these photos. This guy is jacked. He's a jacked mofo. And he takes these pictures. He's all jacked up.
Like me, but different.
Oh yeah, totally. Not. But so then he drinks a 2-liter bottle of Coke, eats a pizza, gets a lot of sodium in his body, gets a good bloat, picks some bad lighting, gets the oil off him, and he takes this photo and he kind of looks like, he's been hanging
like
out.
Me, but different.
Sure. And he puts this photo side by side and he's like, 2-hour difference. What's up?
Just
and
so
that's
you
what
know.
I feel like you just did with should, could. Easy fix.
Yeah, bada bing, bada boom.
There it is. Good for you. I support you in your usage and...
Usage awareness, I think we'll call it.
Okay. It's Usage Awareness Week here at the Unattached.
There it is. That's a high five. We had one high five today. I'll take it. We'll take one more. Done and done. Anything else you want to add to today's episode?
I appreciate you.
Teresa, you are also appreciated. Thank you for being you.
Likewise, man.
We'll see you on the other side.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
He's Ryan.
She's Teresa. See you on the flippity flop.